elaborate a little bit on this idea that the city doesn't work in so many ways, from having lived here now for 7 years.
Well, certainly we know the traffic doesn't work here. One of the things I'm going to enjoy being back in New York is the idea that I can walk to work or take the subway or take a taxi versus here just to go get a carton of milk. You got to get in the car. I live up in the Oaks over in Los Feliz. So the car culture is so much a part of all of our lives. But so much works here. I'm not negative on LA as an experience as a city. I just try to be very open. New York's, God knows, and Boston certainly have their issues still continuing. But there's so much to celebrate here, and one of the celebrations is, I think, a growing involvement of people in what government is doing. That issue of just being concerned with the neighborhoods. I think there was at least the 7 years I've been here, around the issue of crime, there's been much more of a city consciousness of it than just a neighborhood focus. That's my sense of as I've been involved in this issue. And I think that's a good thing, this idea of, democracies exist because we allow certain of our freedoms to be given up for the common good. Cities exist when people allow certain of their pride and passion and interest in their neighborhood to be given up for the common good. And I think we're seeing some movement of that here in Los Angeles, and that's a good thing. It's also a very giving city that, with my budget, although it's $1.2 billion or something to that effect, there are so many needs that are unmet. And fortunately, there are a number of foundations that have raised millions of dollars for this department over the last number of years. It is a city that gives and tries to give, and increasingly the entertainment industry, which is the economic engine of the city, has got more involved in that aspect of the town. So there are so many positives that I tend to be pretty open, about what's good, what's bad, and I'm very optimistic about Los Angeles. But my concern is that the issue of public safety, so much of the image of the city is shaped by crime and the LAPD. I was at a major city chiefs conference, and 3 days ago, the chief from Fremont, who was going to become the next president of the International Association of Chiefs of Police in 2 years, in commenting on me in a goodbye by California chiefs, talked about that California prides itself on its police profession, but to the rest of the country and the world, California is the LAPD. To the rest of the world, a large part of the sense of California is Los Angeles. As this city goes, so goes the sense of the state. People celebrate San Francisco and other beautiful parts of the state, but Los Angeles still is what they think of when they think of California, and certainly in policing. And he was thanking me on behalf of his other chiefs for the turnaround in the image of the LAPD from what it was in the 90s, because in the 90s, he said, all California policing suffered from that LA Police Department image. And as that image has changed more positively in the 21st century, and we're celebrated for best practices in terrorism, crime reduction, race relations, all of the California policing benefits. So it is critically important to stay focused about what happens in LA, unlike Vegas, doesn't stay here. It basically spreads, and spreads quickly across the country and across the world. So if we're in an economic malaise, then that's the impact that the impression that people have. If we're in a crime growth situation, that's the impression that people will have of the whole state.
Can you talk a little bit about the role of civic leadership, and obviously with your emphasis on managers and the LAPD and how important it is to have the right people on the bus? There is a perception that there's a lack of civic leadership here, and I wonder what, coming from New York, if you, not just directly to compare it to New York, but...
No, I don't think that's the case. That mayor, city council, those are incredibly passionate, committed individuals that from time to time I may agree with some of them individually or some of them collectively. But to be a politician, that you have to be part masochist and part sadist and part showman, but above all, you have to be committed, to basically commit yourself to the, particularly in this day and age with Twitters and blogs and, with some guy sitting in his underwear in the basement with his blog can have so much impact on your life by throwing something out there. The days of where the LA Times or the Daily News would influence the way people think. Now with Arianna Huffington probably has as much impact through her blog as either of those two mainstream media. So in terms of politicians, while I necessarily will butt heads with them from time to time, that I don't see any lack of civic commitment. What I've talked about is the idea of, as a whole, the city, in addition to pride in your respective neighborhood, having more pride and involvement in the city as a whole. So that in New York, that the 5 boroughs, everybody celebrates Staten Island, Queens, Brooklyn, where you're from, and you can actually tell where they're from just by their accents. But they still think of themselves as New Yorkers, and that's the civic pride that New York, like the city, is a city of newcomers, constant newcomers coming in, and who settle into a neighborhood and identify that neighborhood with the city as a whole. That's what political leadership is important, to rally the city to the sense of city. And I love cities. The 2 best courses I ever took in my life were Art Appreciation 1 and 2 in my first year of college in Boston, and Urban Geography. Betsy Useem was the instructor, the importance of cities. And if you recall, in the 60s and 70s, cities were over. We were all going to move to the suburbs, live happily ever after, and just leave the cities to the minorities and decay and drugs. And we've come to understand in the 80s, 90s, 21st century, the importance of cities and how significant they are to our culture and democracy. And that's where the political leadership comes in, to go beyond the parochial and be supportive of the whole.